After going from 120 kilograms to 70 kilograms, I had to realign my targets. I wanted to get stronger and rebuild myself and have a physique that I was proud of. Yet, even after losing 50 kilos, I still wasn't happy. Losing the weight was incredible to me. I'd always looked at the scale going down. I'd seen it go from 120 kilograms down to 70 kilograms. However, I obviously wasn't happy with the end result because I hadn't built any muscle. I hadn't built myself a body that I was truly proud of. And I'd focused so much on one goal without looking at the bigger picture. Having been rebuilding, I very much feel like I'm pushing towards new goals now. Today I'm going to guide you through a push day. I do push-pull legs. I find it the simplest way to do things, and I work shifts, so doing push-pull legs I find the easiest to keep track of and make sure that I get my volume in the week that I want. This is my usual push day. I very much find that it changes slightly here and there depending on the machines that are free and also how I'm feeling that week. If I'm feeling less strong, then I might change the exercises to something that I find slightly easier, just in order to remain consistent and keep pushing towards my goals rather than just overall taking a week out or something similar. Obviously, with all these exercises, progressive overload is extremely important, as well as being consistent. This push day is very much built around exercises that I feel that I can make progress on over time in order to build more muscle and to really move things forward, rather than just doing the same exercise over and over again and not increasing the weight. Obviously, you'll have the occasional week where you feel like you're not really progressing. However, in those weeks, just because you haven't made any significant progress in terms of the amount of reps or weight, I feel like as long as you keep going back the next week, eventually you will make the progress as long as you're trying to. At the end of this video, I'll also give you a breakdown of all the exercises that I've done, and I'll give you the exact sort of sets and reps that I do for each one. The exact rep ranges that I try and do. Heavier exercises, I find that I go for a lower rep range, just because I find they're so much more exhausting to do, but I can build more strength by doing a lower rep range. And also the ones that I do higher rep ranges on, and it'll be broken down for you. My first exercise is always some form of heavy press. I love this flat plate loaded press, or also there's a cable stack loaded press, which I find just as good. I've always enjoyed a heavy pressing movement. I often find that I go through phases of using free weights, using barbells, using machines, just in case my progression stalls. If I find that on a certain exercise I'm struggling to progress it, then I'll try something new to see whether I can break through the progression barrier there. I often then move on to an incline press. My favourite one being this machine press, although I also like a Smith machine or dumbbells. I find that usually I aim for 2 heavy sets and then 1 back off, but depending on my strength that week, that kind of changes. Sometimes if I feel on it, I'll do multiple heavier sets. Following this, I do a heavy shoulder press. I do keep this to a minimum, especially if I've gone really heavy on the flat press and the incline press, as usually my shoulders are pretty fried by this point and I do struggle to get the weight up. However, I'll do some lower weight and higher rep ranges just to at least try and get as much time and attention as I possibly can. The next one is one of my favourites. This is a single arm cable fly. I just find that my muscle connection is so good, and I feel like I have the stability to ensure that I'm performing a fly and not just a less stable version of a press. I usually do 3 sets of this, ensuring to get a good stretch, especially on the final set. Occasionally I'll move on to the dip machine, or do some bodyweight dips. This is usually if I feel like I can push my chest a bit further. Sometimes I'll be having an excellent session and I feel like realistically my chest isn't that fatigued and I'd like to push it a bit further. I find that leaning forward gives you a much better stretch on the chest, but it also does a reasonable amount of work for your triceps as well, which moves perfectly onto triceps later on. Following this, I move on to lateral raises. My favourite ones are cable lateral raises, and usually what I'll do is I'll put the cable locked just above the knee. What I find is this gives the best stretch possible. However, I also think there's definitely a place for dumbbell lateral raises, especially seated ones. I find that often when the cables are too busy and you need to get your lateral raises in, it's better to just try and do some more volume elsewhere. And also dumbbell ones can feel a bit nicer at times. Also sometimes, even if you just want to do some extra volume and get some more sets in, it can be well worth just doing some extra dumbbell ones. This leads me into triceps. There are a series of variations that I like to use. For from a simple, heavier V-bar pushdown, a rope pushdown, but specifically the one that I have in the rope that I'll show in this video. I find that the little handles on it can make it so much better for getting a good contraction and make it so much more comfortable for your hands rather than against the end of a kind of a rope one. Also, I find that single arm extensions can be really nice. They can be done unilaterally and they can be done really slow and controlled, but also you can drop set them so easily and just get those few extra reps out. I find that placing my arm at a 45-degree angle is the best way to get the best contraction possible. With my tricep isolations, I often don't set myself firm targets, but I aim to do at least a couple of sets to failure and attempt to do some drop sets as I find them quite enjoyable. Even if drop sets aren't best for muscle growth or there's not the research behind it, I still find them exceptionally good just to keep myself interested in going to the gym and pushing myself at the end of the session, just because getting the best pump can sometimes be the best way to feel the best at the end of a session. I'm also a big fan of putting a few sets of rear delts in a push day. I prioritise them on my pull day, but as they're such a small muscle, I find that they recover really quickly. I also want to do as much extra volume on them, as building a rear delt can give your shoulder that 3D look. I also actually do lateral raises on my pull day as well, just to try and get a little bit of extra volume there. So here's the breakdown of my full push day. It looks a little like this. Each rep range is here, and this is what I usually do. Obviously, it goes without saying that if on my heavy press, I'm doing 6 to 8 reps. If I can easily do something for 8 reps or 9 reps, then it's probably time to put the weight up. If I'm doing something for 8 to 12 reps, then realistically, once I reach 12 reps, I can probably put the weight up and start pushing something for 8 reps again, just to keep overloading things. I feel like these aren't huge jumps and you're probably talking a minimal amount of weight each time. But those small differences will make a huge difference in the long run, and over the course of building yourself up 1% per day, 1% per week, when you think how much of a difference that will make in the long run, it's huge. What I do on my push day may not be for everyone. This is the routine that I feel most consistent with, and that's the key. If certain exercises put you off, then change them. Change them to what you enjoy, and you know you can progress. Over time, my choices have changed a lot. I find that my preferences on different machines, free weights, and different exercises have changed significantly over my time going to the gym. However, one thing has stayed the same: my consistency. Over the past, I'd say at least 3 to 4 years, I've consistently gone to the gym, and I've worked very hard with that. I find that as long as I can maintain that consistency, I'm making progress. Over that time, I've got stronger, I've built more muscle, and I've definitely made a huge impact on making sure that I never return to the weight I was previously. And if I do, it be in muscle, not fat. As long as you're overloading all the exercises and as long as you're pushing yourself, you will make progress. As long as you're eating your protein, which I'm sure I can cover in another video, you will always make some form of progress. Stay consistent, but also don't train to comfort. Don't allow yourself to simply go to the gym, half-ass it completely, and not actually make any significant progress. As long as you go and you look at the numbers and you try and beat them each week, as long as you are beating them every so often, you will be moving forward.